We are back with OMGPuppies, here to do another Magic the Gathering Puzzle Quest video. I believe this is the fourth one that we've done. I'm super excited to do these videos because I don't think this game gets enough credit, and you're one of the best players at it. This time, if you haven't seen those videos, by the way, go check them out, okay, to get a little bit more of a background about how to play the game, things like that, different mechanics that we go over throughout the videos. But this video here, fourth one, we're going to go over all of the Planeswalkers. And if you've played Magic the Gathering before and you know what a Planeswalker is, it's not what you think it is. It's like a player. It's like your avatar in Hearthstone terms, where it's like your hero, where you get different abilities for each planeswalker you are, because we are the planeswalkers. So in this game, Magic the Gathering Puzzle Quest, you get to play with a specific planeswalker, and I'm here to rate whether they are good or bad. So you're going to go over 5 of those planeswalkers. You're going to show them to me, and then I'm going to see whether they're good or bad. So I'm super excited about this. I don't think I've seen a planeswalker in the last 3 episodes, so excited to start off looking at those.
Okay, so here is your first one. Now, let me explain to you how to process this. So at the top, the background behind the picture indicates what color or colors the planeswalker is, which in this case is black.
Okay.
And that affects what cards you can put into your deck. Underneath the name, you see it says 111/out of 111.
See that?
Yeah, that means it has a maximum health of 111. Beneath that, we've got this list of abilities. You can activate 1 per turn. They're modeled on Planeswalker cards, but they're in a lot of ways they're more like hero powers in Hearthstone. You can activate 1 of these per turn and only once that turn, which you do before casting your cards or anything like that. Next to it on the left, it'll tell you how much loyalty each ability costs. There are no plus abilities. There are only minus abilities. The way you gain loyalty, the main way you gain loyalty, is by either match. There are 6 types of them. There's 5, 1 for each of the colors, and there's loyalty gems. So if you match loyalty gems, you get as much loyalty as the number of gems you matched. Or if you match colored gems, no matter how many gems you matched, you get exactly 1 loyalty. And the only way to lose loyalty is to spend it on these things. It's not like in Paper Magic where you can be attacked and lose loyalty. So, which means that the higher possibilities are much more achievable. It's not like in Paper Magic where the ultimate is never ever going to happen.
Okay, so
now below that, yeah,
you just automatically start the game with like this planeswalker in.
He's not in play. He's you. He's
yeah. That's what I mean. You start off with like you just get these abilities.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
You start off with 0 loyalty. Beneath those is the mana bonuses. So, for instance, in this case, it has +3 to white. So if you match 4 white gems, you will get 7 mana rather than 4 because it has a +3.
Oh, interesting.
On the other hand, if you match 3 blue gems, you only get 1 mana because it is -2 to blue.
Oh.
And below that is the deck limits. So in this case, you have 10 unique cards. You have infinite copies of each card, but you have 10 unique cards in your deck. If this is your planeswalker, then at most 6 of those could be creatures, at most 6 of those could be spells, and at most 7 of those could be supports.
Interesting. Yeah, throughout all of our videos so far, I just never knew any of this. Wow. It's a lot to not know. All right, and then the X and the check mark?
The X, what? Oh, you can ignore that.
Oh, got it. Okay. Oh, that's like to add to your deck or not, or whatever, to like make it your planeswalker or something in the game.
It's a UI thing. It's a little too complicated to go into right now.
Okay. So this is Sorin, Imperious Bloodlord. So it seems like this is an exact name of an actual planeswalker in Magic. So it seems like they're using actual planeswalkers in Magic to be like your avatar.
Many of them are. There are also some that are not, and I'm going to show you at least one of those today. Okay. There are at least some though that they invented.
Okay, nice. And a Sorin Imperious Bloodlord is a very, very, very powerful card in actual Magic. So let's see. Planeswalker abilities can be activated by matching gems on the board. I'm assuming every Planeswalker says this, or just most of them.
Yeah.
All right. First loyalty ability is 6, so have to -6 for this. And every Planeswalker starts out with 0. You said.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Blood Frenzy. Target creature you control gains Death Touch and Lifelink until end of turn. If that creature is a vampire, gets +4/+0. Otherwise, it gains the vampire's subtype.
And the +4/+0 is permanent.
Interesting. Now, Death Touch and Lifelink works in this game like the same way, but in that if Death Touch is if this would deal one damage is enough to kill something.
Death Touch works the way Death Touch used to work in Paper Magic, in that it's a triggered ability rather than a static ability. So it actually says, if this dealt damage to something at end of combat, destroy it.
Okay.
Which, for most practical purposes, is the same, although notably it does work differently if you have a creature with both Death Touch and Trample. In Paper Magic, that can only deal one thing and the rest will trample over. That is not the case in this game.
And also, it would work differently with a fight spell. Now that you won't be able to kill the thing.
Okay, so Death Touch in this game only applies to combat damage. I should mention that as well.
Okay, so it's not going to work with a fight spell. It's not going to work like giving like your Mayhem Devil Death Touch. Like if something can ping something for one, it's not going to actually kill the thing if it has if the card has Death Touch. Stuff like that.
Correct, I believe, yeah.
Okay. And then Lifelink is just the same thing in regular Magic, right?
Yes. Okay. Lifelink is... I think Lifelink might also only apply to combat damage.
Okay, got it. So if the creature that has Lifelink does non-combat damage, you won't gain the life.
I believe that's correct.
Okay. Now, getting +4/+0 permanently is like really, really good if it was like regular Magic. +4/+0 is like, since the life totals are gigantic, like you see this one has 111, +4/+0 isn't that big of a deal. It's like 1+1/+0 permanently or something like that. Maybe +2/+0. Getting the vampire subtype is a little bit whatever, but I know that Sorin works with vampires, so that might even work with Purify the Bloodline or Markov's Legacy, the last two things. So why don't I keep that in context for reading the next two? Purify the Bloodline is a -12. This one, lose a vampire reinforcement. Okay, so it's like sack an enchantment, basically.
No, it means... So you remember creatures reinforce?
Yes.
So this means if you have a creature that's reinforced once, it is no longer... Or let's say you've got a creature that has... You played this, and then you played 3 more copies, which is a lot, but go with me. If you activate this, it loses one of them, so it's like you only played... How many did I say you played? You played 4 at once. It's like you only played 3 of them now.
Okay. I understand that. All right, lose a vampire reinforcement. And if you need a little bit of context in reinforcements, you can watch our first episode over reinforcement. Okay. If you can't, destroy your first creature. So now you can't choose the creature in this game, right? It's like the first creature you played.
It's mostly done by order, but there are some things. So, for instance, creatures with the vigilance will always come before creatures without vigilance. Creatures with defender will come even before those, and so forth.
Oh, so there's like
for the most part, yes, it's not. Sort of. So it's done in order which you played them. Your first creature you first played comes first. Creature you second played comes second, and so forth. But a few keywords like defender or vigilance or berserker override that, and they will come before the creatures.
That makes sense. I'm glad they put that in the game. That's a little bit of an extra wrinkle. Okay. If you can't lose a vampire reinforcement, you destroy your first creature, then deal 8 damage to any opposing target and gain 8 life. So this is like the same type of ability as Sorin Imperious Bloodlord has itself. It's literally sacrifice a vampire, deal 3 damage to any target and gain 3 life, which is very similar to this. You don't lose the creature though; you lose a reinforcement on the creature, which is in some ways even better than what it would do in Paper Magic. Dealing 8 damage to any opposing target. You don't get to choose the target, though, right? It just, like, kind of chooses for you.
Yes, you do. You do get to choose.
You do get to choose, okay. But you can't deal damage to an opposing, not Planeswalker, the other type of plane. Like the real Planeswalker? Not real, but...
You can't deal damage to a Vanguard.
Vanguard. You can't deal damage to a Vanguard, okay. But it says any target, but creatures, not a Vanguard.
Yeah, it means you can deal damage to creatures or to your opponents.
Okay.
To your opponent.
For those of you that are confused with the Vanguard wording, a Vanguard is literally a Planeswalker in this game.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
Okay, so losing a reinforcement is better than losing the creature altogether. If you don't have a reinforcement, you have to just destroy your first... Oh, if you can't lose a reinforcement, you actually lose the creature. Okay, I understand that. All right. What do the levels mean? I forgot to ask. Level 4, level 4, level 4?
You can ignore that. They're all going to be level 4.
Oh, okay. And then the last one is Markov's Legacy, which is kind of like the ultimate, I guess. Fetch the first 3 vampires from your library, create an improved Markov's Legacy token. So this card would, in a regular game, just put a vampire from your hand into play. So let's read what improved Markov's Legacy token, what that does. It is a black support card, so it just goes on your board in your gems, right? Is that where supports go?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
At the beginning of combat, move the first vampire card from your hand to the battlefield. Oh, yeah, pretty similar to what it does under your control. While this support is on the board, your vampires get +2/+2 for each of the following evergreens they have: Death Touch, Lifelink, Fly. Wow. It even buffs your creatures, which it doesn't do in real paper Magic. I mean, if there's... And I know that I don't know how good the card is in this game, but Vein Ripper is a card in this game, and it's a vampire. Is Vein Ripper in this game?
Let me check.
And fetch is what? Add them to your hand?
Yeah, basically.
Goodness.
Yes, Vein Ripper is a 16-cost, 6/5 vampire assassin with flying. Says, when this creature becomes the target of a spell your opponent controls, destroy the last opposing creature. When a creature dies or loses a reinforcement, your opponent loses 6 life and you gain 6 life. This effect can trigger up to 5 times per turn.
Yeah. Yeah, that card is absurd. It doesn't do that in regular Magic. It just has ward sacrifice 3 creatures. Or ward sacrifice a creature? Is it 3 or 1? I think it's actually just one.
That doesn't work in this game. Ward is always a mana cost, I believe.
Okay. So yeah, that card's very, very strong, and it actually was one of the best decks in Pioneer before Sorin actually got banned. Sorin Imperious Bloodlord, Pioneer.
Oh, yeah.
Because of that interaction.
Something that is kind of interesting, incidentally, you were mentioning about how they have vanguards and planeswalkers are confusing. They do sometimes have vanguards that are the same planeswalker as a planeswalker, that have the same name and everything.
My goodness.
And even the same art. And generally they have almost the same abilities, but the vanguard version is a bit weaker.
Interesting. I mean, if there's a vampire deck, this planeswalker would be awesome. And maybe you don't even need a vampire deck. You just need this card, and you need any 3 vampires in your deck. So when it says fetch the first 3 vampires from your library, they can be the same name, right? You just get all the vampires if you have 1 vampire in your deck.
Yes.
My goodness. I mean, Vein Ripper is a really, really strong vampire. So all you would need to do if you play this card... I'm not sure about the context of how good the other planeswalkers are, but Sorin Imperious Bloodlord's banned just for that interaction. So if you played this, I would just play this, play three Vein Rippers in my deck, and that's all I need to play. And then I can ultimate this, then get the Vein Rippers and put them into play. Or you could just draw the Vein Ripper, but the problem with this version of it is if you draw the Vein Ripper, you can't just automatically put it in play. You have to -18 from this, which is a lot. I'm not even sure, since you can't attack Sorin in this game. It makes me think
it just won't do any loyalty damage.
Yeah, no loyalty damage. Then
right.
Since you can't attack it to remove loyalty, it makes me feel like you can do it more often. Like, I don't know if
to give you...
Yeah, go ahead.
To help give you some grasp of how much loyalty it is, loyalty is capped at 30. You can have a maximum of 30 loyalty.
Interesting that loyalty is capped. Dealing damage to any target's pretty strong, even if you're not doing the Markov's Legacy. You get to Markov's Legacy, you have the Vein Rippers in your deck. You can probably win if you can actually get that off. Now, Blood Frenzy, the first ability, doesn't actually strike me as something that's that good, but it does make something a vampire, which Sorin Imperious Bloodlord in paper does make it a vampire also. Gives it a +1/+1 counter and makes it a vampire, and gives it Death Touch and Lifelink, which is interesting. So it's almost the same thing. Sorin is one of those cards where if there's a great vampire and you can do the thing consistently, one of the best cards in the format. But if you can't, and it's actually been proven in paper Magic that if there's not a good enough vampire that works with this, or a vampire deck that's good enough, it's just not played at all. So it's either not played at all or really, really good. The fact that you had to read Vein Ripper back again makes me think that, well, metagaming here, but the fact that you had to need to go back and read it. It makes me think that it's not good, because if it was really good, you would know what it did already. But I'm going to be hard pressed to say this card's bad, so I'm going to say it's good.
So the basic problem with it, you were on the right track, but the basic problem with this card is that it's too narrow. Planeswalkers don't rotate out, cards do. So this is, as you say, this is only playable when there's like vampires, good vampires.
Right.
And if you're getting a Planeswalker, you want to get one that's always going to be viable. You don't want to be that dependent on what's in the game. And yeah, there are more now. The one thing that is a bit good about this, that's niche use. In this game, it's not just about whether you win the match or win the game, rather. There's also bonus objectives that might say, like, win this while still having at least this much life, or do this X number of times, or whatever. So if there's anything that says, like, do this while summoning at least so many vampires, then this is good for that. But that's an extremely niche use case. Yeah, it's too narrow. You generally want your Planeswalker to be more flexible than this.
Okay, yeah, I can understand that. I didn't know if there was like a build around where it was like a crazy vampire in this game that's even better than Vein Ripper, that you would just always play that card anyway, kind of thing.
I mean, there have definitely been some crazy vampires in the game. Lord Xander springs to mind.
Yeah, that one too.
But yeah, Lord Xander actually has very little to do with what he does in Magic. But anyway, but the problem is they rotate.
Right.
Planeswalkers don't. That's an interesting thing about getting a Planeswalker, is that it never rotates out, and so even if there are insane vampires right now, which there aren't, but even if there were, you can't guarantee that there'll still be insane Planeswalkers after the next rotation.
Yeah, right. I was kind of like alluding to that, where I was like, if there's a good vampire in the format, like, this card is crazy. But if there's not, it's actually not playable at all. It's like so polarizing.
Right.
Okay. I'm happy that Sorin's in this game, though. Sorin's a very good card.
Yeah. This particular Sorin, they have multiple Sorins, just like in Paper Magic.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Let's do
This next one.
All right. This one is Izzet Viceroy. This one's also a card in Paper Magic. Planeswalker abilities can be activated by matching gems on the board. Yep, like all of them say. All right. -6, Prophetic Research. Pick one of the top 4 cards from your library, fetch that card, which is your hand, and give it 6 mana. Oh, wow. Then destroy the others. Okay. Pick one of the top 4. Okay, so you don't get the other 3. Basically, just put the other one in the graveyard. Look at the top 4, put one in your hand, and then put a donation of mana into it, basically, is what it's saying.
Yeah.
And then destroy the others. That's interesting. The next one is Rechargeable Blast. I like that it's card advantage, by the way. Rechargeable Blast. Deal damage to the target creature equal to the number of spells in your graveyard times 3. When you destroy the others, it just counts as spells in your graveyard?
Yeah.
Okay. Times 3. Then the first spell in your hand gains that amount of mana. Goodness. And then Flux of Genius is create a major Flux of Genius token, which is blue-red support card, emblem 4. Whenever you cast a spell, this support deals 6 damage to any target, then draw 2. What? This is way better than it is in paper.
You'll notice, incidentally, since this is obviously a very spell-heavy card, very spell-heavy walker, rather, you'll notice if you look at the deck limits down, it can have up to 8 spells in a deck, which is pretty high.
Oh, and spells are like
instant sorceries.
Instant sorceries, okay.
And auras, technically.
So it is trying to do the spell slinger thing, which usually Rals do. Looking at the top 4, so basically doing an impulse but putting the rest of them in the graveyard is very strong. Even if you play a graveyard synergy, this could be helpful. If you play like say you play like a reanimator deck, and you're like you look at the top 4, you get your reanimator spell, and the creatures go to the graveyard, so you're just like, oh, sick, I got my reanimator spell. All right, now play my reanimator spell. Bring the thing back that I just put in the graveyard. Does this game like remember your graveyard like that?
What do you mean? Does it? I mean, it keeps track of all the cards in your graveyard.
Okay, because like in Hearthstone, it like doesn't remember what's in your graveyard.
Oh, right. Hearthstone doesn't really have a graveyard. Yeah, this has a graveyard in the Magic sense.
Okay. So it's card advantage. It puts cards in the graveyard, which is strong. It actually kills stuff, and to a creature equal to the number of spells in your graveyard times 3. So all you got to do is like use a couple spells throughout the game, -6 this for prophetic research, get a spell, put some spells in the graveyard, and then rechargeable blast something, kill something. It seems pretty good. The first spell in your hand gains that amount of mana, so your spell could gain like 18 mana. And then the Major Flux of Genius token is just absurd. Win the game. I mean, Izzet Viceroy is not a good card in paper, but I gotta say this card's good in this game.
My personal favorite Planeswalker. Not because he's incredibly strong, although he is pretty strong, but I'm a combo player at heart, and that first ability is one of the best ways to get combo pieces there is.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Like, you either put stuff in the graveyard that you need, and it looks at the top 4, which is kind of a lot.
Yeah.
Puts a card in your hand.
And he's red and blue, and those are both colors that are also good at finding combo pieces.
Yep.
There was also a weird combo at one point. It was as far as I can recall, the only ever like really good deck in the game that was completely featureless, based around his third ability, and the Wizard class card, which when you drew cards, if you already had a certain number of cards in your hands, it gave cards in your hand mana, so you could just do this. You could loop this infinitely. You could cast more spells and draw cards, and that would allow you to get more mana and so forth. And the great thing about that first ability, even if it just said 6 loyalty, draw a card, that would already be pretty good. 6 loyalty and you get to pick a card is better, obviously. 6 loyalty, you get to pick a card and you get rid of the other 3. You mentioned about how they go into the graveyard, but that's not even that's not even the best part of that if you're running a combo deck. Because there's other Planeswalkers that say, look at the top, however many, and put one of those into your hand. But they leave the other ones on top. So if you're digging for something specific, you want to get rid of those others.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are times when you'd really want to keep 2 of them, and that's kind of annoying. But the fact that it gets rid of the ones you don't want is really good. And he's just fun. There's actually. Let me actually give you a bit of strategy that will help you, I think, evaluate cards in the future. So, one thing that's important in this game, because you only have 10 deck slots. Versatility in a card is always nice, but it's even more important in this game than in paper Magic, than most games, because you only have 10 deck slots. And the thing is, unless you're doing some really specific combo, there's 4 things you want that almost every deck wants. You need to have a win condition. You need to have this is part of why Void Run was so good, because it was so flexible. You need to have a win condition. You need to have interaction. You want to have mana in some way, usually by gem conversion, and you want to have card draw. And one thing that's interesting, cards that go into more than one of those categories, can do more than one well, are often very good because there's so much competition for deck slots and it frees you up some room. But also, Planeswalkers that can do at least one of those things are often very good, because that frees up. It's almost like having an extra
card in your deck, right?
Slot.
Yeah, I like that. So you need to have like different roles that your deck can play and different things your decks can do in order to be competitive. So I like that. I like that route. Like when I read prophetic research, I was like, "That's got to be good." Like the fact that like it can do the rechargeable blast in a pinch if you need to kill something, and then the flux of genius just seems like a game. I don't know how often you get to do that, but it does seem like it wins the game.
And also another thing from a perspective of rather than of strength but of fun. One thing I like about this guy is that he's flexible enough that he can do a number of different decks. Some Planeswalkers, all their decks sort of feel the same, and it gets boring. But because it's not unlimited, but it's not like with Sorin where you have to make a vampire. This is much more flexible,
right?
And so you get more variety, and that keeps me interested,
right?
Okay, and why do I keep having this trouble uploading these cards? This is like this, you know what I mean? There we go. This one was not originally a Planeswalker in Magic the Gathering. It was a creature.
All right, this one is Kalemne?
Kalemne, I think it is.
Kalemne, Disciple of Imperious. Okay, I don't think I've ever read this card in paper, so this will be a trip. Be a nice one.
Yeah, it's not in paper. It is not a Planeswalker. It is a creature.
Okay, and if I don't know what it is, that means it wasn't that good. So this one is a creature that probably wasn't as good.
And as you can see from the background color, she is red and white.
Red and white. Okay, let's read Kalemne. All right. -4, Avatar of Erois. Create a Greater Avatar of Erois token. Fetch the first creature card from your library with base cost 14 or greater. So let's read what a Greater Avatar of Erois token. It is a red-white support for Emblem 2. That is, when you activate a loyalty ability, you gain an experience point. Okay, what is an experience point?
So experience points are a resource that are unique to Kalemne. Well, actually, that's not true. There's one other walker that uses experience points, but they're just a resource that is used by her other abilities.
Okay, gain 1 experience point. When you cast a creature card with base cost 14 or greater, you gain 2 experience points. While on the board, your first creature gets +X and gains haste. X is equal to experience points. Okay, interesting. Now let's read Path to Victory. The first creature card in your hand with base cost 14 or greater gains Double Strike. Double Strike the same way it works in paper?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Vigilance, and that's not the same way it works in paper.
Yeah, vigilance means it can block, but it will only block if it would survive the fight.
Okay. And X mana. X is equal to your experience point. Okay. And then Giants.
And also
Go ahead.
One interesting thing about the way this works with reinforcements, let's say you have a creature in play, and you have another copy of that card in your hand, and you use the second ability to give it double strike, you play it, now that whole creature has double strike.
Oh, interesting. Nice. And it just keeps it?
Yeah.
Gains it. Okay. And it has to have a base cost 14 or greater. So, I mean, I assume you build a deck with a bunch of base cost 14 or greater cards. Let's see. And then... and the -4 just adds it to your hand? Adds the creature to your hand already? That's pretty good. And then Giant's Triumph is make a Greater Giant's Triumph token. You gain 10 experience points. And then the token is an enchantment emblem 4 with Resilient. What is Resilient? Like indestructible?
It's indestructible. Ordinarily, you can damage supports by matching gems. It's resilient to that. It can still be destroyed by things like Void Rend.
Okay. When a creature you control with base cost 14 or greater attacks, it deals damage equal to its power to the opponent's Planeswalker and to the first opposing creature. Oh my god. Now, if base cost 14 or greater cards are, a thing that happens that you can just do all the time. I know it's a little bit easier to cast big things in this game as it is in like Paper Magic, because you can make mana donations earlier on in like earlier turns. So it's not like the end of the world to cast like a 14 drop. And we've already went over some cards earlier episodes that are like, you would think that they're like 2 or 3 mana, and it's like 9 in this game, So, and even like the Julie card that we went over is like an 18 drop, So like,
yeah. Well, yes, it is 18.
Yeah, I looked at it. Yeah, so I see that. And then like even the lands are sometimes like 9 mana, 10 mana, like that. So I feel like 14 is just like it's just like a 4 mana card basically. Because I know that the Obnixilus that we went over in one of the videos was like 12 mana, and that's a 4 drop. But in this game it's more like a 3 drop. So I would say that like 14 mana is kind of like a 4 mana card in like Paper Magic, 4 or 5 mana card, I guess. And filling your deck filling your deck with like 4 mana cards isn't the end of the world. Now the problem with a deck like this would be, can you do things in the earlier turns before you can get to that point in the game that it makes it worth playing all those big creatures, to make it worth the Avatar of Erois and the Path to Victory, make it worth playing Kalemne in the first place. Because you can make mana donations to cast bigger spells, not that you have to make a crazy donation or whatever, because you only basically need to like donate 1 turn into the 4 drop. I'm gonna say 4 drop with like the 14 base 14 cost or greater card. Gaining double strike and vigilance and X mana, like the point of Path to Victory, gaining the mana as well, means that once you get to do this, kind of get to keep keep the train going with the base cost 14 or greater like big stuff in your deck. If you can get to that point in the game, I feel like it'll be really strong. It's a weird inflection point though, because you want to play these big cards, but it's also an aggro deck. So you kind of like want to play little creatures if you're playing an aggro deck, because you're giving things haste and double strike and vigilance. What I think I like about this Planeswalker is that I think it's really flexible, and that like if you're like, oh, I play this base deck that has just like these couple cards with base cost 14 or greater, you get to use Avatar of Erois, the first ability, to just like fetch that creature, and you're already playing a good deck. You're already playing a good deck, and you have Kalemne because it's like a good generic Planeswalker to have, because giving your stuff double strike and vigilance and X mana and experience points, and it kind of works with experience points, is like good in any deck. It's like the opposite of Sorin. That Sorin is like pretty specific. This is like super not specific if you just have a couple cards in your deck with base cost 14 or greater. So in that way, because it's generic and because you don't have to totally fill your deck base cost 14 or greater things, you actually could build it in a way where you have one card that is base cost 14 or greater that you just always want in your hand. Maybe you're playing a combo deck, or maybe you're playing like some good creature that you kind of always want access to.
Keep in mind, this is only creatures that it fetches.
Yeah, only creatures. Yeah, you have like one big creature that you want with base cost 14 or greater. The rest of your deck can be whatever you want, but this card works with that one bomb creature that you want to have. Avatar of Erois and Path to Victory only work with base cost 14 or greater cards, but if you build your deck around that card, it could be really strong, especially because Avatar of Erois just gets it to your hand. So in that way, I'm going to say this card's good.
I really don't like this Planeswalker.
Okay.
But it is good.
But it is good. Okay.
Yeah. So, well, it's especially good for newer players. So this is sort of like Sorin, that it's very clear about the kind of deck it wants you to build, but it's very much not like Sorin in that, there's a question, are there going to be vampires in this environment? There are always going to be big creatures in any environment.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have that issue. The part of the reason I don't like it is that this has sort of the, I talked about this with Thrall a bit, that I don't like Planeswalkers whose decks end up all sort of feeling the same, which this sort of does, and they're kind of boring. They're just, attacked with very large creatures. The ability to it gets card advantage for Raul took 6 to get you a card. This lady rather only takes 4. And that's really good. But again, it's just sort of bashing with big creatures, which I find kind of boring.
Yeah, you're a spell slinging combo player. You're going to find bashing with creatures boring.
Yeah. Well, creatures that just use them as creatures where their power and toughness matters. I don't like that. If they're using them as like combo pieces, that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention this with Raw. You remember in a previous episode I mentioned the Obnixilus Keza combo?
Yes.
Rahl is one of the best creatures, one of the best walkers for that combo. It can precisely because of its first ability. And I have a video of it, which I can share with you later. How that combo works with Rahl. Anyway.
Yeah, I feel like this is it. Am I right in that this is kind of like you could just put a big creature in your deck and just have this as your generic Planeswalker?
Yeah. That's part of why it's good for newer players, both because it's good when you have a fairly limited collection, and because it's really easy to build a deck. It's very clear what it wants you to do.
Right.
One thing I will say about it is that it's a very good. There's an event in the game called I think the Implicit Maze, and it's Ravnica themed. And because it is Ravnica themed, only 2-color planeswalkers can participate in it. She's a very good choice for that, precisely because she's so flexible, and it's really easy to build decks for each event for her.
Yeah, like kind of generic. You can just it's kind of good if you just put one big creature in your deck and you just put whatever you want.
Yeah.
Okay, nice. All right, well, let's go to the fourth one then. Okay. All right. This one is Koth of the Hammer. Now, Koth of the Hammer isn't a very good planeswalker in Paper Magic. It has seen play. It's okay, but let's see how this one goes. -6 is Reshape the Land. Destroy 12 non-red gems. Destroy 12 non-red gems. Wow, that could be broken,
you may want to look at. You may want to look at the mana bonuses for this specific Planeswalker because they're important here.
Okay, the mana bonuses are -1 for white, -1 for blue, and +9 for red. So you destroy 12 non-red gems, and then every
nine
time...
is, I believe, is the highest single color bonus in the game.
Yeah, I believe I like that it's like that because Koth works with mountains. Like in regular in paper Magic, it's just all about mountains. Deal damage equal to the number of mountains you control. +1, it has like a +2 that adds a mountain to your hand. So it does, and I can see Rage of the Mountain and Strength of the Mountain. It does. It's like the most mountain flavored Planeswalker like you can think of. So
yeah.
destroy.
He also kind of looks like he's made of mountains, kind of in the art.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, he's made from he's of the mountain. Sure. So about this destroy 12 non-red gems. That is like gain 1 billion mana, right? In this game, like
it's kind of weirdly swingy because you don't get to pick the gems, so it can get you a huge amount of mana. It can also sometimes get you literally no mana.
It can get you no mana, but like you're +9ing every time you match a red, right? So can't it just add you like 100 mana? like if you match 1 red gem, you get 9 mana, right?
It also has the advantage that you activate these abilities before you make your match. So even if you don't make any match immediately, it gives you more red gems to make your actual normal match by swap.
Right. Okay, so destroys 12 non-red gems. The Rage of the Mountain is give your creatures +8/+0. No, yeah, +8/+0. Trample and Berserker to the end of your turn, and you already said what Berserker does. It's like, it probably is like, what, the first creature that has to attack and the first creature that has to be targeted or sacrificed, basically?
Yeah, it attacks your it attacks the creatures instead of your opponent. Although in this case, since it has trample, it's more like it attacks the creature and the opponent.
Okay, give all your creatures +8/+0 trample and Berserker to the end of your turn. Interesting. It's like a big overrun. Strength of the Mountain is create a support on the board with whenever any player matches red gems, all your creatures gain +4/+.
And that support has 10 shields, incidentally. I don't know why they don't say that in the description there.
Okay, and also that's permanent, right?
That is permanent.
Okay, so this is a Planeswalker that would make you want to play a bunch of creatures, and then it's like an aggro deck, right? You get a bunch of mana, and then you just play a bunch of creatures, and then on your next turn, you Rage of the Mountain, give them +8/+5 trample and Berserker, and then you just like destroy your opponent. Strength of the Mountain, make a support on the board. And also what's funny about this Planeswalker is that when you match the gems, you gain more loyalty, right?
When you match colored gems, you gain exactly 1 loyalty for each match you made. Now, one thing that's interesting is, let's say you've got you've got some blue gems and some red gems right next to each other, and you make a swap so that you get a red match and a blue match. That gets you 2 loyalty.
Okay. Now, it's weird because I'm saying all these cards are good, but like, wow. Wait, now that we see these pictures, like right above where it says Koth of the Hammer, where it has like your mailbox and stuff like that, and your gems and stuff, are there going to be MTG Puzzle Quest people in the comments like, oh my god, how do you have like 2 million, whatever it is? like, like, your account is stacked.
It's 29 million. Those pretty much just accumulate. Now the other two, the pink and the gold, those are valuable, but that one pretty much just accumulates forever.
Okay, so they're like, so you can tell how long.
You asked earlier about the level 4 next to all of the abilities. When you get a Planeswalker, it's only level 1. And you can level it up to level 60, and its abilities level up too. And that 29 million thing is the currency you spend to level up your Planeswalkers. And that's pretty much the only thing you use it for. And because you have a finite number of Planeswalkers past a certain point, you don't really have anything to spend that on. So it just accumulates.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And then the 312 and the 224, our puzzle quest player is going to be like, oh my gosh, this person has infinite resources or whatever.
No, those are pretty low. Those are pretty low values.
Okay. Anyway, back to the card. Destroying 12 non-red gems. I know you said that there's a Planeswalker can be good if it does one of the few things: gain card advantage, convert gems, and do a couple other things. Now,
card advantage mana, which includes converting gems, a win condition, and interaction.
Yeah, so this is not a win condition, it's not interaction, it's not card advantage. It can be card advantage in the fact that you're killing your opponent's things and giving your things berserker, so they can kill your opponent's creatures. But
card advantage, I really meant card draw before accurate.
Okay, card draw. Okay. Now this does not do any of those three, but it does destroy 12 non-red gems. And when you destroy the non-red gems, that means what's left? The red gems. And that means you have a bunch of mana, since every time you match, you get nine red, right?
Well, you're only destroying 12 non-red gems, and there's 49 on the board, so you're destroying about a quarter of the board, yeah.
See, we went over a card called Rupture Spire earlier in a different video.
Yeah.
And I liked how that card, you would want to play that card in like a monocolored deck, and I kind of came around to the fact that you would want to play it in a monocolored deck. Or was it Rupture Spire, or was it the other card? It was the Mana Rock, the one that has indestructible that makes other copies of itself.
Yeah, I forget what it's the Skyclave.
Yeah, the Skyclave. It was either one of those. I was like, oh, maybe you want to just play this in a monocolor deck because it would like make your gems better. I think it was Rupture Spire that I was talking about, and in that way,
well, Rupture Spire is exactly the opposite. Rupture Spire you want to play in a three color deck.
Oh yeah,
because then it'll destroy like half the board when it comes in.
Right. So,
Skyclave is the one you want to play in a monocolor deck.
So with that theory behind that, it's like, oh, destroying a bunch of gems, even if it's like 12 out of the 60, like destroying a quarter of the 49, destroying a quarter of like the non-red gems on the board could make you a lot of mana. And then if you're already playing a lot of creature, like little, like not even like just whatever creatures in your mono red deck, which you want to be doing anyway, +8/+0 Trample Berserker seems pretty good. And whenever a player matches red gems, all your creatures get +4/+4 seems pretty good. I'm not sure how fast aggro decks are in this game, but I'm going to say that I really like Reshape the Land, so I'm going to say this card's good.
Card is infuriatingly close to being very good. To being. So here's the thing: when you look at the bottom of the screen, you see the deck limits. You notice it says you can only have. You look at the last one: 3 supports.
Okay.
If that's 5 supports, this would be one of the best mono walkers in the game. The thing is, firstly, 3 supports is not very many supports, so it's bad to have that limit. But it's especially bad specifically for Koth, because he's so focused on red gems, and the main way to get gem conversion, except in green, is by supports, by lands. It's infuriatingly limiting whenever you try to build any Koth deck, because he doesn't get enough gem conversion, and he can't do any of the other things supports can do, because he has to use all of them for his gem conversion. That said, he is still pretty good, mostly as you suggested because of his first ability, which often pays for itself, as you mentioned. As you also got, I'd score this one as a win for you. You didn't notice the supports, but you got the burst one. It is a win condition though. That last one, it's a permanent. The last one is much better in PvE than in PvP, because in PvP they're always going to be running some sort of support removal. PvE is much less likely to do that, although there are some that do. This support is kind of an interesting one in that it does not actually have a type. It's not an enchantment or a land or an artifact or anything like that. It's just support.
Right.
And there was a time when that was an advantage. It made it harder to destroy. Support removal has now gotten good enough that that's not really the case anymore.
Right.
But yeah, that third one, that can get out of hand pretty quickly.
Right.
You can often get multiple red matches in a turn, and you get like +8/+8 or +12/+12 every turn, and that's permanent. That can really get out of hand.
Right.
Okay.
I'm glad I got the win on Koth, because Koth is really cool.
Yeah. Now we got the last and the most complicated of these planeswalkers for you.
Uh-oh.
Okay, that's the first image, and then we got a second one for the hyperlinked UAP.
1 sec. All right. Okay, this one is Arlinn Cord. Okay, I like Arlinn, I must say. The Gruul planeswalker. All right. Strength of the Wolf. It's -6. Target creature you control gets +4/+4 haste, trample, and berserker until end of turn. Okay, well, it's similar to Koth's other ability. Let's see. Call the pack -9. Fetch the first werewolf or wolf card from your library. If you can't, fetch the first creature card instead. It gains 9 mana. Wow. Okay. Touch the Moon is your werewolf and wolf creatures get +4/+4. Create a Touch of the Moon token, then transform Arlinn Cord. Now, let's read the Touch of the Moon token. Event rules 2. What's event rules?
It's just a kind of support.
Okay. While this support is on the board, creatures you control gain the werewolf subtype. Interesting. Okay, what's the transformation side of Arlinn? Arlinn becomes a creature, right? Yeah. Arlinn becomes a larger and more in charger. All right. This one is Moon's Embrace. It's a -3. Target werewolf creature you control gains +3/+3. Then transform it. So it transforms your werewolves, which is really strong because there's some backsides of werewolves in Magic that are very strong. Hunt with the Pack is your first werewolf or wolf creature deals damage equal to its power to the first opposing creature. If you can't, make 4 werewolf tokens instead. What's a werewolf token? It is a 2/2 token with Berserker and Trample. You make 4 Berserker Trample tokens. If your werewolf or wolf creature can't deal damage equal to its power to the first opposing creatures, it like always does something.
Which usually means that you don't have one.
Right. And then Lycanthropic Frenzy is when your werewolf or wolf creatures get +10/+10, then transform it back. Wow. Interesting. Now, it's very interesting because of the Sorin that we went over being a, like, not viable because you have to build it with vampires. Now you're showing me one that's only works with werewolves. But it doesn't only work with werewolves, because it makes any creature get +4/+4, haste, trample, berserker. Call the Pack does have to work with werewolves or wolves. But it doesn't actually, because it says if you can't, fetch the first creature instead. So you just get a creature to your hand that gains 9 mana. But then the -12 has to work with werewolves and wolves. And then you create the Touch the Moon token, which is, to remind myself,
everything
is creatures you control become werewolves. So, like, it works with werewolves, but also doesn't have to. And then when you transform Arlinn, since your wolves are werewolves, because Arlinn made them werewolves, they get +3/+3. And then you can transform them if they have a transformation. And then Hunt with the Pack would work with your creatures because they are now werewolves because of the other side of Arlinn. So I'm trying to see if you don't play werewolves, if you can still do both of these abilities to their best ability. Because you probably can, because Arlinn makes your creatures werewolves. The abilities are pretty good. Giving your werewolves and wolves +10/+10 is really strong. Transforming back to Arlinn. Now, when it transforms back to Arlinn, you have to wait till your next turn to use an Arlinn ability. Interesting. Lets you play green and red. It doesn't have detrimental mana. It's just +4 red, +4 green, which is pretty good. It lets you play 6 supports. Pretty good. Oh man, this one actually, I think this one is not as complicated as I thought it was going to be because I'm already familiar with how werewolves work and specifically how Arlinn works with paper.
Yeah, well, by complicated, I mostly just meant because it has 6 abilities instead of 3.
Yeah. 4/4 haste, trample, berserker. That seems good. It gets card advantage, but it's a -9 to get card advantage. But you get 9 mana as well when you get the first creature. It does force you to play a creature deck, that's for sure. And you don't have to play werewolves with this Planeswalker.
Yeah, as I mentioned, there has basically been one ever good deck that didn't run creatures.
The fact that you could play like a werewolf in this, and there's werewolves that are pretty strong. I don't think there's that many good werewolves in Standard right now. But not that you have to play werewolves with this deck anyway, since the first side of Arlinn with the ultimate there, with the Touch of the Moon, which isn't even that hard to do, -12. It's not that hard to do. And you don't have to play werewolves because it just makes your current board werewolves anyway. The only thing that would be bad with it is that if you made your board werewolves to like work with Arlinn and then you flip it, and then your opponent just removes your creatures, then you have no werewolves to work with, and since you're not playing actual werewolves in your deck, you have no way to like use Moon's Embrace or Hunt with the Pack doesn't work anymore. But it would actually, because you make 4 werewolf tokens, so it still makes the werewolf. Oh my goodness! Like, it doesn't work with werewolves. It works with werewolves. I've already said that like every single one of these was good, and I don't want to say that all of them are good. And after I give my I'm afraid that if I say this is bad, then you're gonna be like, this is the best planeswalker in the game.
I'm in your head now.
What was that?
I'm in your head now.
Oh my goodness! While this support is on the board, creatures gain the werewolf subtype. Wait, so it's not even those current werewolves. I actually had to reread that. It's even creatures that you play after gain the werewolf subtype, even if they're played afterwards, because you have the support in play. Oh no. I'm afraid to say all of them are good, but it's weird. But I'm gonna say it's good. I'm gonna say that I'm gonna give I'm gonna say that all of the cards that you showed me today were good.
Well, remember, Sorin was not good, but
yeah, I'm gonna say that they're good. Not that they're all good, but
right.
I said they're all good.
Right.
But my final answer is gonna be this card is good.
This planeswalker is not good.
No.
For precisely this reason, Sorin is not good. Also, just because there's better Gruul walkers. I actually ran into a bit of an issue when I was trying to take the images for these, which is that cards, you get them, they're sort of semi-random. You open packs and you don't know what's going to be in them. Although if you get duplicates, you can get the stuff to craft cards you don't have. But planeswalkers, you know which one you're getting. So I usually don't get the planeswalkers if they're not good. So I actually had trouble finding enough bad planeswalkers to put into here, so I could take the images of them. Arlinn's not great. She again has the similar thing with Sorin in that if there's an objective, use this many werewolves, then she's good for that, I guess. Although even there, I'd probably go with Domri instead, who is also a Gruul walker.
Yeah, Domri's pretty good. Like the only reason why I said this was good is because you don't actually have to play werewolves if you play Arlinn.
Yeah, it's not great.
Pretty mediocre.
Also, if you just want breed, there's a 3-color walker that was at one point the best walker in the game. It's been power crafted, but it's still pretty strong.
What's that one?
I don't want to say because maybe I'll show it to you in a future episode.
Got it. Okay. So this one's not good for the same way that Sorin's not good. I can understand.
Yeah, I didn't show you any 3-color walkers in this one, did I?
Nope.
So also one thing I should have mentioned earlier about Koth is that although he has the highest single color bonus in the game at +9, his total is actually low for a single color walker. If you go back up to Sorin, for instance, if you add up all his pluses and minuses, it comes up to +9, which is what it'll be for most single color walkers.
Right.
Dual color walkers will generally add up to +8, and tricolor walkers will add up to +7. But Koth adds up to +7, which is a bit low.
Interesting. Well, I think I went 3 and 2 in this. I'm pretty sure, which is judging by the how many loyalty abilities that I had to go over with today. I think I'd give myself a pass on that.
Yeah, this is now you know what it's like for us people who don't play Yu-Gi-Oh! When you try to evaluate Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards.
well, if you can evaluate all of these planeswalkers, you can play Yu-Gi-Oh! Actually,
the thing that's always made me hesitant to try Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not, the wordiness, which is what most people complain about. It's the whole thing. They have these archetypes, and as I mentioned, I'm a combo player. I like to brew, and it kind of feels like they're building the deck for you. I like to come up with my own.
It is true. There's a lot of room for brewing, but it does kind of like create its own archetype. There's a lot of things in Yu-Gi-Oh! where you have a full archetype, but you only play like 3 cards in that archetype because those are the 3 good ones. I feel like you would be a good Yu-Gi-Oh! Player because you do like the combo aspect of Magic, and you do like brewing, and Yu-Gi-Oh! does have room for brewing. So maybe one of these days I'll do a video with you about you rating Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards just so you can see how it goes.
Yeah, I just wondered if Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards read more naturally in the original Japanese.
Yeah, maybe they do. I'm not sure. Like in the original Japanese, the way that they're templated is different. A lot of cards have bullet points where they don't have
Well,
them
also,
in
Japanese
PCG.
is a more compact language than English. You can fit more into a given space.
Yeah.
As a general rule, I actually knew this guy once who worked writing technical manuals that have sections in different languages, and they had actual rules of thumb for, if it takes this much space in English to write it, it will generally take about 30% more in German and about 20% less in Japanese and so forth.
Right, and that might be actually one of the reasons why Yu-Gi-Oh has such long wording, is because it's not actually long wording in Japanese.
Yeah. That always gets me about the long wording, though, is that it's not just that they have more words than most games, is that they have less space to put those words in most games.
Thank you for watching. Thank you once again on Puppies for being on the show. Also, if you want to get 5% off of literally anything in the CoolStuffInc.com store, go to CoolStuffInc.com. The link is in the description below. Use code JAME5 at checkout, JAME5, to get 5% off of literally anything in the store. And also, if you want to be part of the show, just like on Puppies, since you are a Patreon supporter, you can join the Patreon as well by clicking the link down in the description below as well if you want to be on the show. Thank you once again on Puppies for being on the show. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again next time. And as always, peace.